Ric Serritella here with Brian Baldinger for Sports Management Worldwide, and we got a major announcement. We are coming to the Sports Management Worldwide Football Career Conference in Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine, Baldy, and I'm looking forward to imparting our knowledge and experience. And I know you've been at it as a player, a coach, an analyst, a scout, and we're going to get a chance to talk to the next generation of up-and-coming superstars.
Well, I think it's the next step, in this whole off season leading up to, the draft at the end of April. And we get to eyeball these kids in real drills here. Now let's go take another look at them, their measurables, how they compete in some of these drills. Whether you want to take much out of them, there's a place for it. So it's another chance for these kids to compete, try to, do their best. They're all training for it. So we'll get a chance to really evaluate these kids at another level.
Yeah, and it's the biggest networking event of the year. Of course, Sports Management Worldwide will have the Punch Bowl gathering. Baldy and myself will be over there. We'll be at the Combine with the Football Career Conference. We'll be chopping it up, breaking it down, talking on the scouting panel, and meeting you over in Indianapolis. So go to smww.com, and we'll see you there, everybody.
Baby, you are tuned in to the All Access Football NFL Draft Show here on this Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. Ric Serritella here from the legendary Jersey Shore Broadcasting around the universe. Thank you very much to our super producer, Cole Glotzer, holding it down with that fancy music intro. We're all fired up here on this Wednesday affair. It's a hump day. We've got a lot of announcements throughout the course of the show that we're going to get in. We've got a lot of moving and shaking. We're going to have some, we're going to sprinkle that stardust, now that the dust has settled from the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl. We've got the all East-West Shrine Bowl and all Senior Bowl teams coming out over at allaccessfootball.com. I'm going to touch base lightly on some of the moneymakers down in Mobile. Big shout out to my guy Neil Stratton along the travel roads. If you haven't checked out the Scouting the League podcast, he takes you behind the scenes, literally on the field and off the field. Like everybody sees the glitz, the glamour, all the fun and smiles that Rick is having on social media. Neil tells you about the road travels. Tales from the scouting trails, that we like to call it. It's how camaraderie is built. But, we drove from the East-West Shrine Bowl in Dallas. Great event, by the way. What Eric Galco and the staff have done at the East-West Shrine Bowl is incredible in terms of access, rubbing elbows with the NFL execs in attendance, you name it. I mean, first-class facilities. They rolled out the red carpet for us, and so we're grateful for that. We started off in Dallas. We worked our way. Neil said, hey, come back. I'm in Houston. We'll go watch the games. We watched Championship Sunday in Houston, and then we woke up and worked our way eastbound over to Mobile, Alabama, and then we flew out of New Orleans. So we got it all in. Of course, Mobile is still staking claim to Mardi Gras. I think it might be going down a little bit. I mean, what is it? What a time to be in New Orleans. You got the Super Bowl. You got Mardi Gras. I mean, buckle up. And we're just getting started. By the way, before we get into the nitty-gritty, we're going to hit you with some hard, heavy analysis from our scouting trails. Later on in the show, we've been hitting you every Wednesday here. We're going to keep this going leading up to the draft. Starting next Wednesday, Brian Baldinger will be joining me as my co-host from here on out. He just needed to get through Super Bowl weekend, and then he's turning his attention over full-time to NFL draft duties. Over at allaccessfootball.com, we're going to be having our second scouting seminar on February 12th, which I believe is a week from today. So we'll be breaking it down in the film room sessions. Go to allaccessfootball.com and learn more about that. Of course, the official 2025 NFL Draft Bible is part of the membership there. We're going to have scouting reports on all these guys. And you saw the promo right before we got started here with Sports Management Worldwide Football Career Conference. I've been participating in this event for probably over a decade now. I am honored and privileged. They've asked me to moderate the scouting panel this year, and I know Brian Baldinger is going to be out there. We're going to have my guy Dane Vandernat. Shout out to him. He just joined the Hamilton Tiger Cats along with my guy Teddy Gavay and Cyril Penn. They're putting a hell of a front office. Keep an eye on those Hamilton Tiger Cats in the CFL. We do that too here at the allaccessfootball.com. But today is about NFL draft, like it is each and every day. Year-round coverage of the NFL draft, everything football. That's what we do since 2002. And let's talk about it, be about it, break it down, chop it up. Did I mention we're going to have Eric Edholm later in the show to break down his mock draft over on NFL.com? And then we have a special guest to cap it all off, Crissy Froyd, a QB insider. I'm telling you, when it comes to QB analysis, she is out in front of a lot of people that you see out there, and she's my go-to source when it comes to quarterbacks. Both of them, by the way, we had a chance to catch up in Mobile. They were down at the Senior Bowl. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about how the QB big board stacks up. Did anybody really stake claim to that QB3? And also a few names to keep an eye on for next year's 2026 NFL draft, because you know how the saying always goes. Well, wait till next year's quarterback class. You know, it's always wait till next year. Wait, when do you? I mean, you could have 6 quarterbacks going first round. About this time last year, everybody was saying, well, wait till next year's quarterback class. Well, who are some of those guys? We'll talk about that. But let's get into the All Senior Bowl team, because you love the All-Star game process. And thank you for everybody who tuned in on social media with our recaps and our video hits, and we have it all floating around out there on the YouTube and Twitterverse. But if you tuned in, then you know we were talking about guys throughout the week who impressed, and there was a lot. The talent was great. I don't know how many like first round locks there are. Probably in the trenches. You saw Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. I think he's a first round talent. This guy, Mike Green out of Marshall. Okay, we'll start right there, Cole. Mike Green out of Marshall, because he had the play of the week. I mean, you want to talk about getting up out of your seat, or, you know, time to put your big boy pants on. I mean, Jack Connerly Jr. out of Oregon came in with a nice little buzz for himself. And, I mean, you want to talk about grown man football. And I'm sure if you tuned into the show, that means you probably love the NFL draft. You've probably seen the clips circulating around on the Twitterverse. I think our guy Baldy captured it too. But, I mean, Mike Green pulverized this dude. Completely ran him over, like just steamrolled him. And I'll tell you what, you know, what a way to make a first impression. This redshirt sophomore, Adam Marshall, Sackmaster. I think people are going to be surprised at just how high Mike Green out of Marshall is selected. I think he looks like a top 20 overall selection. I think he's a top half of the first round type of prospect, that Mike Green. And as funny as it sounds, he might even now go ahead of James Pierce out of Tennessee. That's how much this guy has just skyrocketed up draft boards. And we're going to talk. You're going to hear a lot about Mike Green between now and the NFL draft on April the 24th out in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Whew, buckle up. Okay, let's keep it on defense since we started there. Savion Jones, if you watched the East-West Shrine Bowl game, you saw him wreaking havoc in the backfield, had a couple sacks, beat Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State, who was the star of the show throughout Mobile week in practice. The guy was just jumping in line, playing every position, winning every one-on-one rep. But in comes Savion Jones out of LSU. Really good-looking player on that defensive line. He's about 280 pounds, 6'5". As good as he looked on the edge, and he practiced most of the week as a pass rusher, I would say I like him better as a 3-tech, where he can really take advantage of that quickness, bulk him up another 10 or 15 pounds. Now he's 300, and he's moving, and he's providing a pass rush from the interior. I think that is where Savion Jones' true value lies at the next level. Now, you want to talk about a guy that just continued to impress. How you doing, Louis Garudo? Thank you for tuning in. Hope all is well. Jack Kaiser out of Notre Dame. By the way, we love to get interactive with it. We don't have enough interaction on the show. Try to get with me in the chat room, wherever you're tuned in on the social media universe out there, man. We take questions. We do it all over here. Ric Serritella, by the way, buckled down and hunkered up. Jack Kaiser was buckled down and hunkered up, and he was inside your underpants in pass coverage. Jack Kaiser, a little bit grabby, right? A little bit physical, borderline, grabby, and a red flag there. And we're gonna have to learn how not to sync up this stuff. But Jack Kaiser, man, I tell you, I love this dude. I mean, I think he's a day 2 selection. I have no problem. Like, if you want to take Jack Kaiser in the second round, I'm good with that. I'm good with Jack Kaiser in the second round. I didn't see any athletic limitations. And in fact, I believe Jim Nagy tweeted out he was the practice player of the week, or the defensive practice player of the week. And it showed. I mean, we did a film room breakdown session with Baldy and my guy Dane Vandernat, who's going to be out at the Football Career Conference. And it was a clinic of pass coverage by Jack Kaiser. Not to mention, like, this dude, like, I took the breath out of the room when I hit him with this factoid, and like, they were so shocked. I had to go back and just double check I had my facts straight, because nobody wanted to believe me. I said, this guy has more special team reps than any player in the draft. 996. I mean, are you kidding me? This guy's got 1,000 special team reps. I mean, these are the type of players that hang out in the NFL for a decade plus. Okay. I just saw the Tyler Matakevich interview come across my Facebook timeline yesterday, 10 years ago. Who was talking about Tyler Matakevich? We were, because he had the intangibles. He lacked the size, but he played special teams. Now here he is entering year 10. This is a bigger version of Tyler Matakevich. This is Jack Kaiser edition. Sign me up. This guy's a starter all day, Jack Kaiser. Great value. Maxwell Hairston. Let's go back into the back end of the secondary. Okay. This guy now has injected himself into the first round conversation. Coming in at 6 foot and change, 180 pounds, a little bit too light for my liking, but he's physical. He's a solid cover man. I like him in press man. He could also play zone. After Travis Hunter and William Johnson, I think, that tier 2 of cornerbacks, a lot of people say Benjamin Morrison of Notre Dame. I didn't really see that on film before his injury. I'd be scared to use a first-round pick on him. Maxwell Hairston is a good-looking player. There's a couple others in the mix. I don't have the big board in front of me, but I want to keep it moving because I want to get into East-West Shrine Bowl moneymakers and risers and surprisers. And here's somebody we didn't talk about on any of our coverage yet. So even if you tuned into everything, I have not discussed the young man out of Georgia playing safety, and Daniel Jackson. The pads are popping. Man, this dude, I think he is like somebody that came into my life and I said, you know what? I got to do more homework on that young man, because he's shot out of a cannon. And you saw it show up on game day again. I mean, he makes big hits, always shows up around the football. Tenacious demeanor, and it's contagious. That's what I like about it. Has a little bit of that championship pedigree, that Dan Jackson out of Georgia. And I'm glad we started with the defense, because the offense, these guys get all the love. I'm going to run through some names. Jack Beck is a guy that probably didn't get enough love. But, I mean, a storybook ending with the walk-off touchdown. Of course, his brother gunned down there in New Orleans a couple weeks ago. Princeton, shout out to Jersey, and the love. But, the Puka Nacua comparisons to Jack Beck are warranted. He's a big guy, vertical, fearless over the middle, body balance, body control. I like it. I like Jack Beck. He's another guy, top 50 for me. Tez Johnson, I have a hard time wrapping my head around, because Tez Johnson, he will be the lightest player in the National Football League, not named Kevontae Turpin. And we slapped a Tank Dell comparison on him down there in Mobile. And I hope he doesn't come with the same durability concerns. I think he's like 156 pounds. I mean, it's just unheard of in the NFL. But now nobody could cover this kid. So how do you value that? How do you gauge that? I mean, you talk about risk reward. That is Tez Johnson. You want to roll the dice on day 2, go for it. I'd be a little bit leery. If you're a contending team, if you're looking to add an X factor to your offense that might put you over the top, then sure, go for it. But if you're a team rebuilding and needs to add pieces, I don't know if Tez Johnson is going to be for you. And you know what? I thought that about Harold Fannin out of Bowling Green. I said, he might not be for everybody. He's a little bit undersized. After watching him throughout the week, making all these fantastic catches, I mean, dare we say Harold Fannin is Antonio Gates? Oh, let that marinate in the Sunday gravy for a little bit, huh? Think about that. Yeah, I said it. All right, I'm going to let you marinate on that. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about who stood out to me over at the East-West Shrine Bowl. You don't want to miss that, so buckle up. We'll be right back on the NFL Draft. All access.
Ric Serritella here with Brian Baldinger for Sports Management Worldwide, and we got a major announcement. We are coming to the Sports Management Worldwide Football Career Conference in Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine, Baldy, and I'm looking forward to imparting our knowledge and experience. And I know you've been at it as a player, a coach, an analyst, a scout, and we're going to get a chance to talk to the next generation of up-and-coming superstars.
Well, I think it's the next step, in this whole offseason leading up to, the draft at the end of April, and we get to eyeball these kids in real drills here. Now let's go take another look at them, their measurables, how they compete in some of these drills. Whether you want to take much out of them, there's a place for it. So it's another chance for these kids to compete, try to do their best. They're all training for it. So we'll get a chance to really evaluate these kids at another level.
Yeah, and it's the biggest networking event of the year. Of course, Sports Management Worldwide will have the Punch Bowl gathering. Baldy and myself will be over there. We'll be at the Combine with the Football Career Conference. We'll be chopping it up, breaking it down, talking on the scouting panel, and meeting you over in Indianapolis. So go to smww.com, and we'll see you there, everybody.
You are tuned in to the All Access Football NFL DraftCast. I am your host, Ric Serritella, here on this Wednesday, February 5th, 2024. Cole, what happened to the Jersey Shore B-roll? I thought we were rolling in here. Mike Soriano wants to know where we're at. We're broadcasting live at the legendary Jersey Shore around the universe. You're tuned in. Thank you for joining us. And it's always a roundtable discussion here at allaccessfootball.com. You saw the highlight of myself with Brian Baldinger down in Mobile. We were on hand at the Senior Bowl. He joined me down at the Hula Bowl. We were also on hand for the Tropical Bowl and the East-West Shrine Bowl, which we're going to get into some moneymakers right now. But if you are interested in joining us out at the NFL Scouting Combine for the SMWW Football Career Conference, they've given us a promo for all of our All Access Football listeners. Baldy 150, that's BALDY, all caps 150, no spaces, will save you $150. So there you go. I just gave you $150 courtesy of me. RIC. Adam Schefter will be out there. My guy, Brian Baldinger. We have Mark Dominic, I think, checking in. So if you want to get immersed in the scouting world and have ambitions of being a scout, I suggest you come out. Also, we've got a pretty good sale going on over at allaccessfootball.com. If you want to get the pre-order, the 2025 NFL Draft Bible, you can sign up for that. And February 12th, we'll be having our Baldy Breakdowns film room session. I think we're going to break down some of the Senior Bowl practice film from last year. Guys like Quinyon Mitchell, guys like Cooper DeJean that had impact on these Super Bowl squads. Like, to me, where did the NFL go wrong? How did these guys hang out so long in the first round, especially after the week they had in Mobile? And we've seen that happen, right? We've seen guys pass through, like an Aaron Donald come through and dominate, and teams still be skeptical about pulling the trigger. One guy I think teams are going to be skeptical about pulling the trigger is Jalen Milroe. And we're going to talk about that young man later on in the show when Crissy Froyd, our QB insider, joins us. We'll talk about the Senior Bowl quarterbacks, that Tyler Shuck drawing a little bit of buzz. Well, I was out there in Louisville, out in August. I'll tell you what I saw. Crissy will tell you what she saw. She was down in Mobile. Of course, we got Eric Edholm from NFL.com coming up. Next segment, he's going to talk about his latest mock draft. But I'm going to run through some East-West Shrine Bowl winners for you real quick. And, I know they've been pumping Kyle McCord now, that East-West Shrine Bowl, and I respect the heck out of the staff over there. Kyle McCord, I don't know. I know he's from Jersey. I want to like it. I can't get that Boston College game out of the head. And then, I didn't really see it when I was over there in Dallas. Maybe I'm missing something, but they want to talk about spin rate and ball velocity and miles per hour and all that stuff. To me, I just want to see him get it done. But to me, Max Brosmer was the best looking quarterback I saw along the scouting trails, period, point blank. He looked the best looking guy. Quickest release, fluid, gamer, great dude. I like that Max Brosmer. To me, I thought he was the best quarterback I saw. How about Ja'Cory Crosky Merritt? I'm so happy for this guy. Like, there was a whole eligibility issue. He played the first game of the season. Then he had to sit out the rest of the year because the NCAA couldn't figure out his redshirt status. So he literally played one game, sat out the whole season after transferring. Really didn't get a chance to compete until the Hula Bowl, gets the call up to the Shrine Bowl, wins the game MVP. How about that? And I'll tell you what, this is a guy that's flying under the radar because he wasn't, out of sight, out of mind. That Ja'Cory Crosky Merritt. I've slapped the 4th round grade on him now. How about that? And that's why you play the games. And both the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl, just dramatic storylines with Jack Beck and the walk-off, Ja'Cory Crosky Merritt, and I want to shout out to the Senior Bowl staff because they rolled out the red carpet for us as well. Both outstanding events overall. Go to the Scouting the League podcast. We talked more about tales from the scouting trails if you want the behind the scenes of what really goes down on the road. But we're talking about East-West Shrine Bowl winners. Ja'Cory Brooks, I thought, was operating at a whole nother level the whole week. He's a starter in the National Football League, Ja'Cory Brooks out of Louisville. That's one guy that really did impress me when I was down there in training camp. And there's no diva in him. There was rumors of him being a diva at Alabama. I mean, I spoke to 4 or 5 different coaches at Louisville. They swear by the kid, so we'll see. Antwain Wells, Juice Wells out of Tennessee. This dude is big. He's fast. He's physical. Really good-looking, impressive guy. I think in the middle rounds, probably like a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. I don't know if he plays specials, so that's kind of hard justifying the pick there. But he definitely has some change of direction for his size. That's impressive. How about Oronde Gadsden? This tight end class is so deep. We're going to talk a little bit about that with Eric Edholm next segment. To me, like Tyler Warren, I might be in the minority. I think I have Harold Fannin now as my QB2. Elijah Arroyo as my QB3. We didn't talk about what he did at the Senior Bowl. Colston Loveland is probably my QB, tight end 4. And then you got guys like Oronde Gadsden with NFL bloodlines just hanging out, making plays all over the field. Not much of a blocker, but, I thought he flashed. He has continuously flashed. Converted wide receiver, kind of that Darren Waller wannabe mold. Sneaking a couple defensive guys, and we'll take a break. Well, offensive line, Joshua Gray might have been the best player there. Oregon State can play all 5 offensive line positions. We talked about him. Kendall from Boston College. Drew Kendall. Talked to his father, Pete Kendall. Spent about a decade in the league as well. Kendall now is my number 1 center. He had a great week at the Shrine Bowl. And he can play all 3 interior. He's like a Cam Jurgens type. Noel Williams, outstanding out of California. He accepted a Senior Bowl invite, but participated in the Shrine Bowl. And then O'Connell, Donald, the South Carolina, I think he was defensive player of the week or defensive player of the game. He got called up from the Hula Bowl. He stood out, slot corner, O'Donnell, South Carolina helmet, stood out both weeks of practices at the Hula in Orlando. And then again in Dallas, he elevated his draft stock significantly, as did Kobe Bryant. I think he's still a good slot corner. Okay, so those are some names I think you need to know from the East-West Shrine Bowl. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Mike Soriano, were you really at the Senior Bowl screaming my name? I didn't hear you. I've always got my head on a swivel. Where were you at? Paisan, you got to yell at me like it's Sunday conversation at the dinner table, like you want me to pass you the meatballs. All right. When we come back, we got NFL Draft Bible Familia. I mean, if you followed me, if you've been tuning into my live stream shows, Eric Edholm from NFL.com, he's been coming on for quite a while. You can see the grays. We're getting up there in years over here, but he was on location, boots on the ground. We're going to get a little bit of a different perspective from Eric. We'll take a look at his mock draft. We'll kind of get a feel, a lot of changes down in Mobile from the event organization, the logistics, the hosting of it all. We're going to talk about all that and more when we come back on the All Access Football NFL DraftCast. Hey, tell a friend and come back in right after this.
Ric Serritella here with Brian Baldinger for Sports Management Worldwide, and we got a major announcement. We are coming to the Sports Management Worldwide Football Career Conference in Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine, Baldy, and I'm looking forward to imparting our knowledge and experience. And I know you've been at it as a player, a coach, an analyst, a scout, and we're going to get a chance to talk to the next generation of up-and-coming superstars.
Well, I think it's the next step, in this whole offseason leading up to, the draft at the end of April. And we get to eyeball these kids in real drills here. Now let's go take another look at them, their measurables, how they compete in some of these drills. Whether you want to take much out of them, there's a place for it. So it's another chance for these kids to compete, try to, do their best. They're all training for it. So we'll get a chance to really evaluate these kids at another level.
Yeah, and it's the biggest networking event of the year. Of course, Sports Management Worldwide will have the Punch Bowl gathering. Baldy and myself will be over there. We'll be at the Combine with the Football Career Conference. We'll be chopping it up, breaking it down, talking on the scouting panel, and meeting you over in Indianapolis. So go to smww.com, and we'll see you there, everybody.
You are tuned in to the All Access Football NFL DraftCast with your host, Ric Serritella, broadcasting live from the legendary Jersey Shore around the universe. You saw the B-roll there. Our super producer, Cole Glotzer, rolled in there, and we'll be on location. You saw the promo with Baldy. I mean, when I talk about the NFL Draft Bible Familia, we'll be rolling deep in India. We got Baldy out there. We got our guy, Howard Balzer, is going to be doing some Combine Confidential for us. We're going to have Dominic Ambrosi and Jarrett Regal that do great work behind the scenes for the NFL Draft Bible publication. Our girl, Kate Adams, is going to be down there doing interviews for us. And we're trying to get the super producer, Cole Glotzer, as well. I know my next guest will be in Indianapolis because he's been covering the league for over 2 decades with the Sporting News, Pro Football Weekly, Yahoo Sports. Oh, the good old days. We year for yesterday. A native of Boston, a graduate of Mizzou, and a current resident of Chicago, of course, and NFL.com lead NFL draft analyst and a friend of the show for many years. Let's welcome on Eric Edholm to the show. How are we doing, Eric?
Good to see you again. I will see you soon as well, as you sort of tease there. We'll be in Indy before we know it, and I won't be coming in till Tuesday. I've got a little thing I got to take care of here on Monday, so I won't be getting there right at the start of the week, but I'll be getting there pretty close.
Yeah, I think the GMs and head coaches are usually kind of early in the week with the media sessions, and of course, we've seen a lot of changes to the Combine format, and it's kind of trickled into the All-Star Game event as well. I want to talk to you first before we get into boots on the ground, which you saw down there in Mobile. Like, what's your takeaway now? We're kind of a couple years into new venue, new logistics, kind of lot. You see a lot of the scouts now and media types as well staying out by the airport closer to the stadium. I mean, like I walked downtown, it was a little bit eerie. It was like a ghost town. What's your takeaway just from the whole looks and feel of everything at the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, so I started with NFL media probably before the 2022 season, I guess, and then I went to maybe that was the I've been to basically 3 Senior Bowls now as a member of NFL media, and my editor would always bitch and complain that we weren't put up at the Battle House or the Renaissance downtown. We're out at the Mobile Marriott now, which is, like you said, about 15 minutes from the stadium or 12 minutes from the stadium, whatever. I kind of like that better. I mean, yes, downtown is where the action is. It's where most people go out to eat at night and have a drink. But you're right. The couple times I ventured down there and strayed, past the rental car or whatever, a few feet, I was like, it is like Mardi Gras week and Senior Bowl week, right? I mean, there is something going on here, right? I'm not walking into an apocalypse scene or something like that.
It was different, and I'm not so sure the action is downtown anymore. And I thought that was interesting. But let's get to some on the field action because a great talented group, but a lot of these guys dropped out last second.
Yeah.
I don't know. We saw I think there was 10 first-round selections from last year's Senior Bowl. I don't think we're going to see that from this year's group, but who were some of the guys that you thought were kind of tier 1 talent down there?
Yeah, that's the other change, obviously, is you see players drop out. Now, that has been a part of the game forever, and obviously with the underclassmen now, you hope that would kind of balance out. But, you just feel like if scouts hear any sort of top 20 type lock, they're pulling the guys. Or if a guy has a good practice or two, I mean, if I was an agent, I'd be telling my player, put everything you can into day one. Just try to kill it day one. And it's you're almost guaranteed to be a winner of the week either way. People still remember that Tuesday performance, even if there's a warm-up period or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, I would say on the whole, it may pale a little bit in comparison to last year's group, especially with the quarterback talent. I don't know that there was that one quarterback who really sort of put themselves ahead of the pack. I would say Tyler Shuck probably answered enough questions as far as, you know what you're getting. He's an older prospect, but you're also getting somebody pretty experienced. And, he's sort of just, I felt gradually stacked solid practices, or at least improved enough to, make me consider him going a little bit higher than he would have otherwise. And it's a fun story when you see Taylor Elgersma from Laurier College. I think Isaiah Adams, who spent 1 year there, I think he's the only NFL player I've been able to confirm actually spent time at that program. So it's a cool story to see him, make some throws and at least sort of look the part. But yeah, I don't know. There was that one major guy. Running backs, sort of the same thing. Again, a solid group. It's a good deep running back class. Not sure there was that one guy.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to see any of those running backs until day 3. I thought Damian Martinez probably was the best of the bunch, but again,
maybe
I don't think you're even thinking about that guy until the 4th round.
Could I see Damian Martinez because of his pass protection, his hard running? I thought he finished the week strong too, especially Thursday. He looked good. I was a little disappointed in Trevor Etienne, just as far. The Senior Bowl is not always the best venue for running backs for practices.
But I want to back up though, because the quarterbacks we've seen in years past, guys have gone down there, Daniel Jones, EJ Manuel, Christian Ponder, they've gone down there and catapulted themselves into the first round fire. And I think everybody was anticipating Jalen Milroe to do it, never really saw it through the practice week. Well, we said, maybe when the game lights will come on, we'll see it. But I'm just curious, did he hurt himself? And did Will Howard become de facto QB3 by not showing up?
And that's a great question. I'm sure if Jim Nagy's listening, he's gonna be texting both of us furiously in the next few minutes. What do you mean he helped himself by not playing? There are cases of that happening where a guy just obviously. I don't think you can blame a player who's been through a 16-game season with college football now with the playoffs, but then again, Jack Kaiser was out there and Riley Leonard and but, I don't blame, obviously, Will Howard for sitting out after he had committed. But yeah, you almost feel that way. You almost feel like he did enough during the playoff run, really, from after the Michigan game, played some really good ball. Yeah, Milroe, it didn't feel vastly different to Joe Milton last year. I know that the reputations were totally different coming in, but in terms of how they looked in practice, it was at times a little bit clunky and ugly, and it wasn't looking like it should. That's not to say that his skills aren't readily apparent, right? There you can watch him and understand there's a different level of zip on his passes, and his athleticism is obviously there. Some of that stuff isn't going to translate to the Senior Bowl practice sessions and maybe not even the game. Heck, I remember Russell Wilson having a up and down week down there and not, not elevating himself necessarily. So there are plenty of examples of quarterbacks in the past who've had so-so weeks or not great weeks down there and done okay for themselves. But I agree. It felt like a missed opportunity, especially the fans were all there to watch. I mean, I understand he's a complicated subject, as far as like Bama fans are concerned. They've sort of turned on him in some ways a little bit. But at the same time, there were still plenty of people looking for his autograph and still people wearing their Bama jerseys. And so very friendly environment. And it didn't really feel like he did enough to kind of push himself into that late first, day 2 discussion, whatever you want to,
Yeah,
you thought he might go.
That's a good point, because I remember Jalen Hurts being there, and you just feel his presence the whole week. Like, you could sense it, right? We're talking to Eric Edholm, NFL.com. I want to get over to your mock draft. Before we do, I'm curious, because you have Cam Ward going number 3 as your first quarterback off the board. And I
already hate my mock. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no, I got some beef. We're going to get to that.
All right, let's do it.
But I want to ask you first, though, because I was a little bit taken aback. Like, Shedeur Sanders is my QB1.
Okay.
I was a little bit taken aback by the conversations I had with NFL front office executives and the overwhelming consensus feeling that Cam Ward is QB1 and Shedeur Sanders is. I mean, I don't think I found one NFL team except for the Giants who you have taken Cam Ward that I think might like Shedeur Sanders. So I'm curious, do you prefer Ward to Sanders, or did you have that for mock draft purposes, or how do you see those two guys?
Yeah, they're a little bit apples and oranges, as you know, style wise. They're not the same player. I mean, I think as we get closer to the draft and some of the more seasonal draft fans who maybe haven't watched as much college football, may be surprised to sort of see what kind of game Sanders plays. It's not necessarily, that athletic runaround quarterback, although there is some of that to his game, but I think he's more of a rhythm thrower, and you want to get him in a short and intermediate offense where he can, kind of attack the leverage spots and things where he feels like he's got the best matchups, and his accuracy is really good, and his toughness is good. I thought he did a better job last year of not running into sacks and finding different ways to deal with pressure. It wasn't as bad either. Obviously, the 23 Colorado line had some shortcomings. Every now and then he throws a ball like you're going, what? Every 150 throws or something, he throws a weird one, and you go, okay. I don't think he's an amazing athlete or has an incredible arm, but to me, he's got a high floor. And I don't know that you can say that about a ton of quarterbacks in this class. Maybe Shuck, I mentioned earlier, maybe Will Howard or Riley Leonard have high floors, whatever that means for the quarterback position. But that boy, there's something about him that, with the Sanders name, maybe comes some attention and some riffraff and whatnot. But at the same time, I feel like he's sort of been bred for this moment. And I don't think it'll be too big for him. I don't think he's the attention-seeking guy that some people have made him out to be. That may change after interviews. That may change after, the Sanders camp gets involved, maybe. But not to say they haven't been already. But I like a lot of his stuff. I just think that they're both. Like, if we're being straight up honest on our grading, and I would give both second-round grades. Now, I gave Bo Nix a second-round grade last year.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question, because I had one very prominent front office executive. I won't say his name. I will say he's a household name. I don't want to give the team away. They're set at quarterback, but I was fascinated. He said these two quarterbacks, if they were in last year's draft class, would be QB6 and QB7. Are you under the same impression?
I think they would have been in that discussion of the second 3, right? I think it would have been very hard, in my opinion. This is, again, if we took everything we had now and meshed it with last year's draft class and everything we knew at the time, I don't think he's cracking into that Caleb, Jaden, Drake May trio. That's just either one of them, Ward or Sanders. I haven't quite decided how I feel like, whether one is vastly superior than the other, but I do think they're both my top 2 guys. But McCarthy, Penix, Nix, I think there would have been a real healthy discussion about, maybe Nix ends up in Denver because Sean Payton just said, this is the guy I want, right? There's always that specific fit quality of quarterbacking you can't overlook. But that would have been a really interesting debate. And then how soon would those guys have gone off too? That's taken it a little farther, but still, I think it's fair to say they would have been on the back end of that top 6 or maybe just even outside it.
Yeah, very good. All right, Eric Edholm, Ric Serritella here, digging into his mock draft. Now we're going to have a little fun. We'll start off with the pick that I like, and then we'll get to the pick I don't like so much.
All right.
The pick I love, as a matter of fact, and I am so with you on Tyler Warren being a top 5 talent in this year.
Oh, good, because I was worried that was the one you were going to jump on there.
No, I am all in on Tyler Warren. I thought he was underutilized, as a matter of fact.
Amen.
Yeah.
For those wide receivers, amen. Yep.
Oh, man. And you got him going number 5 to Jacksonville, which I think, not as athletic as Brock Bowers, but probably a better overall player. And dare I say, like, he's in the mold of a Rob Gronkowski. Is that what you see?
Big boy who moves extremely well, can do a lot of things. Obviously, you watch almost any Penn State game and you see him, lining up in line, lining up in the backfield, detached, slot, whatever. I mean, he, can take handoffs, it could be part of your run game as a blocker and as a ball carrier. I don't know how much he'll do that in the NFL, but we've seen obviously, how many of these guys like Mark Andrews and Kelsey and other tight ends play in that, especially in the red zone, right? They have that role where they have a few plays that they're handling the ball or, can be used as weapons down there. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously brings the grit and the sort of spirit you want in one of those tight ends too, like a guy who's going to fight through some tackles and make some plays. I thought somebody compared him to Jeremy Shockey too. Yeah. I like that as well.
Yeah,
maybe it was Lance.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think it may have been Lance Zierlein who does our reports for us. I can't remember. I was talking to him down there about him a little, but you're right, underutilized too. I mean, for what a weapon he was and the number of ways you can kind of get him the ball, especially given how their receivers, I think, played at the end of the year. I would have been force feeding the ball as much as I could to him. But yeah, I mean, he's the kind of guy you watch the USC game and it's ridiculous. Rare that a tight end can take over like that. But I had some Jaguars fans push back and they're like, we don't need a tight end. We need other stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. I get that. But this is one of those drafts, Rick, and maybe tell me if I'm wrong, but the top 10, once you get past a certain point, like 4 probably, you're having to make some decisions on like, do we take the best player or do we take a player in a position of need? Because that may fall kind of far a little bit. So like, I probably think he needs to run a 4 or 5-ish time to get in that top 6-7 picks. But I mean, if he works out well and weighs in 6'5", 260 and looks great, well, I could see it. It wouldn't be shocking.
Yeah, I can't get me enough of Tyler Warren.
Yeah.
Moving on down the mock now towards the back end of the draft, and I'm a big advocate of running backs now, but I want to see it and I want to believe it when I watch Caleb Johnson. You have him going in the first round, I think 25th, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
What if I miss? You're forcing me now to go back to the film because I want to know. Maybe I'm missing something. Tell me what you like about Caleb Johnson? You got him going to the Chargers at 22.
Yeah, I think he's kind of got a Chiefs-y quality to him. I mean, I don't know if that's but like kind of what we saw early in the careers of Kareem Hunt before he left, and then Pacheco, I would say too. I mean, different players, but in terms of built like a bruiser, but has some real finesse to their game and can win on all 3 downs. Sort of that well-built, athletic, proportional frame. Now, to be fair, I have not heard from a single team that they think Caleb Johnson is a first-round pick. Then again, I haven't really farmed out a ton of opinions on that either. That was a little bit of this is the first mock. We can have a little bit of fun with it, and we can put in some names that maybe don't appear in other mocks. I try not to look at too many, but I look at just enough to know, kind of who the same 25 guys are, right?
Yeah, I like it.
And I think it just lends the idea that yeah, maybe it is a deep draft class and everybody waits after, the first guy goes off the board. After Gentry's pick, maybe there is a 30 pick wait or whatever, 25 or more until the next one goes. But I just feel like he's going to be, as long as he can figure out the pass protection stuff, which I think at his size he should be able to. I haven't watched enough of him, but I know that's a little bit of a question. That he could be a real productive runner. Now, some people like Hampton better from North Carolina. The Ohio State kids certainly are fascinating in a different style of back. But yeah, I mean that's a good pick of mine in that mock to kind of jump on, because that was a little bit of a dart throw, fun pick more than anything. And we'll find out. We'll find out more at the combine, but probably more of a second rounder, I would think.
Well, it's not the first time I've seen some Caleb Johnson love out there. And if we are going to make up some kudos points with our friend Jim Nagy, I will say I thought Cam Scadaboo blew it by not attending the Senior Bowl, because I thought he was one guy that could have really staked the claim, not only to being a second running back, but like after running through that Texas Longhorn defense, I mean, there was a lot of momentum there going on.
A lot of buzz.
Scadaboo, but
he looked worn down there at the end of that game. I wonder how long it took for him to recover. That game changed so much, though. I mean, he was great before that, but man, you just felt like what didn't he do in this game? You checked off every single box with that tape, so maybe he just felt like, I can't get much better than this. But I'm with you. I would have loved to see him down there. I had a whole section written about him in my Senior Bowl preview, and then all of a sudden he pulled out. And I went, I guess that's going in the trash can.
There was a lot of that. There was a lot of that this year. But the good news is we still have about 75 days or so left to the 2025 NFL draft. So I'm sure you'll be regurgitating that info over there at NFL.com. What do you got coming up over on the website, Eric?
Yeah, finishing up with some Super Bowl stuff, obviously, this week. And then it's like full-scale draft mode. I'm about 95% draft heavy after that. I know you're about 100 at that point. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting some – I'm going to do a Shedeur Sanders team fits piece. That's one I'm kind of looking forward to because, you said he's your QB number one. I know a lot of people don't think – aren't exactly sure where he's going to go. Some people also agree with you. Some feel like, he's overrated because of the name. So I think it'll generate a little buzz. But the key is to find, the teams that make the most sense. And I think you really do have to whittle the list down. This isn't, like what I wrote the other day, Myles Garrett trade destinations. I could have listed 31 teams, right? With Shedeur, it's not going to be a perfect fit for every club. So his style of play, his last name, everything that comes with him, and what you need in a quarterback from year one is going to matter a lot to where he ends up. So I could see him going top 5. I could see him slipping a little bit. And I think, I have some thinking to do between now and Monday to figure out how big a list do I put out? Do I do 7 teams? Do I do 9? Is it 5? Something in the middle there. And I'm kind of anxiously looking forward to that one because I don't know who else is going to make the cut right now.
Yeah, and reportedly there are 2 mystery teams that Coach Prime says Shedeur will not play for. We shall see how that pans out, but always appreciate the time, Eric. I know we'll be catching up over there in Indianapolis and look forward to the content over on NFL.com. Thank you, brother.
Keep up the great work, buddy. We'll see you soon, dude.
Thank you, my man. That's Eric Edholm. Does a great job, like I said, covering the NFL for 2 decades. He's been around as long as I have. I've inherited the gray hair for the both of us. He's still looking young and spry. You can see the 2 decades of wear and tear over here at allaccessfootball.com. It's what we do, bringing you the names you need to know first since 2002. Big fan of Eric, man, and really appreciate him coming on. He's been coming on over the years through all of our various platforms. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back in 2 minutes with our QB insider, Crissy Froyd, another friend of the show. So don't go anywhere.
Ric Serritella here with Brian Baldinger for Sports Management Worldwide, and we got a major announcement. We are coming to the Sports Management Worldwide Football Career Conference in Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine, Baldy, and I'm looking forward to imparting our knowledge and experience. And I know you've been at it as a player, a coach, an analyst, a scout, and we're going to get a chance to talk to the next generation of up-and-coming superstars.
Well, I think it's the next step, in this whole offseason leading up to, the draft at the end of April. And we get to eyeball these kids in real drills here. Now let's go take another look at them, their measurables, how they compete in some of these drills. Whether you want to take much out of them, there's a place for it. So it's another chance for these kids to compete, try to, do their best. They're all training for it. So we'll get a chance to really evaluate these kids at another level.
Yeah, and it's the biggest networking event of the year. Of course, Sports Management Worldwide will have the Punch Bowl gathering. Baldy and myself will be over there. We'll be at the Combine with the Football Career Conference. We'll be chopping it up, breaking it down, talking on the scouting panel, and meeting you over in Indianapolis. So go to smww.com, and we'll see you there, everybody.
Back at it again. All right, seeing a place to be. Ric Serritella chopping it up live here on the NFL DraftCast, broadcasting at the legendary Jersey Shore, around the universe. Thank you for tuning in. An hour of power. We're winding down, talking Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl. We just had Eric Edholm of NFL.com talking about his Senior Bowl. You saw the promo there with Brian Baldinger, who will be riding shotgun with me starting next Wednesday. Every Wednesday leading up to the draft, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Baldy and me will be counting you down to that 2025 NFL draft destination, Green Bay, Wisconsin. Oh, baby. Bundle up. Never mind a buckle up. You better bundle up for Green Bay. Of course, if you want to join us out in Indianapolis for the SMWW Football Career Conference, go to sportsmanagementworldwide.com. Our good friends at SMWW have been kind enough to bless us with a $150 promo code. Baldy150, Baldy150, all caps, BALDY 150, no spaces. Save $150. We got Adam Schefter coming through. I'll be holding down the scouting panel, moderating it. I've been speaking there for well over a decade, and covering the SEC for the past decade is our next guest, checking in from Georgia. Of course, you may know her from the USA Today, NBC Sports, our good friend from Sports Illustrated, and our go-to source when it comes to quarterback analysis. We welcome in Crissy Froyd to the show. Crissy, thanks for your patience hanging out in the green room. How are we doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when it comes to quarterback analysis, I always love talking to you. It was great catching up in Mobile. You had some excellent insight as always. I'm curious to know, we had Eric Edholm on just a minute ago. We were talking about some of those Senior Bowl quarterbacks, the disappointment of Jalen Milroe, the impressive performance that he liked of Tyler Shuck, who's kind of drawing a little bit of a buzz here post-mortem of the Senior Bowl. And I want to inject another name who I haven't mentioned yet here on the show, Jackson Dart, another guy that we were just hoping to kind of see more down in Mobile. I will say, you had Dart, Milroe, and Riley Leonard all on the same squad practicing, and Dart was his build, his legs, his body type. It was more thick and sturdier, it seemed, than a Riley Leonard. So I thought that was one surprise. But what was your takeaway down in Mobile? You had boots on the ground there with us. What was your impressions from the Mobile quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, I think that Jackson Dart took the cake, and everyone kind of expected that to be the case. But as someone who's covered him in person for a very long time, the comment that you make about the build is very accurate. I think he's done a lot of things just nutrition-wise and body-wise throughout the offseason that have really helped him. And you couple that with his performance here and, back in Mobile, and then the way he performed throughout the season. And Lane Kiffin kind of runs a high-flying offense. It's not quite the air raid. It's not really one that I look at that inflates numbers. I don't really remember Matt Corral as being a quarterback that inflated numbers to a ridiculous extent. And so he's posting those video game numbers throughout the entire season. But the way that I look at the film of what he puts up, it doesn't look like it's dink and dunk, or they're overinflated for any reason that is outside of him and what he's doing. So I thought that he was by far the best quarterback there. I think one quarterback who really raised his stock a lot is Riley Leonard. And it's kind of funny when we look back at it, because I've been talking to Riley since he was at Duke. And I remember our first conversation, he said, people didn't think that I could run. And then I was running the ball really well. And so they sent a QB spy on me. And I think that he was kind of a mid passer. I think he's improved a lot as a passer. But it's funny because I feel like a lot of people, the narrative this year has been that Riley Leonard can't throw the ball. And then before, I feel like a lot of people don't realize that the narrative was flipped the other way. And then the Notre Dame offense leans so heavily into the run game. I don't feel like he was able to fully show what he brings to the table as a passer. And I feel like he showed that a lot more in Mobile. So we look at a guy that was probably previously 6th or 7th round. I would put him between the 3rd and the 5th based on the way that his stock has risen. And the Canadian quarterback, Taylor Elgersma, I feel like he's been somewhat polarizing. I mean, in the Senior Bowl quarterback rankings that I've seen, there's some people that have him like top 2, top 3, and there's some people that think he was the worst one there. I feel like people didn't really know what to make of him. And he comes from a place where the rules are so different football-wise, but I think that he showed a lot of good things. Jalen Milroe, I think, was the biggest disappointment. And I've been saying that since he declared he's not ready. He's not there. He's been nowhere close there. He had a really hot start to the season, but I think that what he projected as before was a true dual threat quarterback, not quite like Lamar Jackson or something of that level, but it looked like he had started improving as a passer, but it went back to the same inconsistency. And I think he needed another year of development, and that was fully exposed throughout the Senior Bowl. I think I would almost say he was the worst quarterback there.
It was a pretty brutal performance for Jalen Milroe. You just were kind of waiting all week, and it never kicked in. I will say, like, I'm a fan of Riley Leonard, and I couldn't find a lot of love. Like you said, I felt like people just thought he was a day 3 guy. I'm going to be curious to see. Like, he's borderline top 50. I have him in my top 100. I look at that game there, that national championship. He came out with that 18-play drive, to your point, showed he can run the ball. Then how about at the end of the game, second half, when he needed to pass? I thought he made some excellent throws. So I don't think Riley Leonard gets enough credit. I'm curious, though, to hear more about Jackson Dart, because you're saying, hey, he's the consensus quarterback, and I didn't do a deep dive on the quarterbacks out there because, I was watching other things, and you know how it is, one person trying to watch everything. That's why we have you here. We're leaning on you. So, Crissy, is Jackson Dart the QB3 on your big board?
I have him as QB4 behind Shedeur Sanders. I think a lot of people have Shedeur Sanders as QB1. I have him a little bit lower as someone. My biggest quibble with Shedeur Sanders is that I knew him back at Jackson State in Mississippi, and I went out there, and I think that there's a lot of rumors surrounding his character. And I mean, there were certain ways at Colorado that he was presenting himself that I feel like gives some merit to that. I feel like kind of shifted and got a little bit of a big head. But Jackson Dart, I feel like he brings all the accuracy to the table. I think he's one of the most mechanically polished passers in this draft. And it's just his ability to consistently produce. I didn't really see him skip a beat throughout this entire season. And some of those things, they sound so cliche or so basic, but I mean, the object of playing quarterback comes down to consistency and good mental processing and staying steady. And I feel like he does that better than just about anyone else. I would say the only other quarterback I can think of that's done a lot of things better than him would be like Cam Ward and maybe Will. I think I have Will Howard a lot higher than most people do, but I was very sold on him after the national championship. And I know you talked a little bit about Riley and his national championship performance. I think he delivered through the air and on the ground, but I think that no one else was delivering at the same level that he was. And that's why they leaned so heavily into him. And he blamed himself for a lot of things after the game, but I think he was probably their most valuable player by a long shot.
Very interesting. So it sounds like you have Cam Ward, Will Howard, Jackson Dart, followed by Shedeur Sanders as
it's Shedeur ahead of Jackson Dart.
Okay, very good. Also, I want to just get one last follow-up on Tyler Shuck because Eric mentioned him, you mentioned him. I saw him in training camp. I liked what I saw, But then I saw some flaws show up during games, turnovers in big spots. I like the experience. Somebody who did endure quite a few injuries early on in his career, so he's still kind of have to somewhat be thinking about the durability issues, even though he got through this season pretty unscathed. Where do you see Tyler Shough? I mean, Louis Riddick, who is I guess, well-respected analyst, as this guy's the sleeper of the draft. Where do you fall with Tyler Shough?
Well, I mean, like he says, I mean, maybe he ends up being kind of like a Brock Purdy. Like, does he get drafted? Does he not? I put him between the 6th and the 7th round, but that, I think, to your point, there's just so many question marks. I mean, throughout his career, I mean, there were times that he was highly rated, but then he falls off the radar due to injury, which happens to so many quarterbacks. I think he's probably grown a lot from a decision-making perspective, and I think that he showed that a lot in Mobile. But I think when we look at some of the film from these games, I've encountered it so many times. The quarterbacks I've worked around that have a lot of injury issues. In addition to the injury issues, there's so many more games than you know about that they're actually playing through injury. And an injured quarterback, the mechanics are going to be off and everything's going to look really bad. I mean, I think back to Michael Pratt at Tulane, and his stock was relatively decent, and then it fell once again. And then I talked to him after the season and during the season, 95% of the time, Michael Pratt was playing injured, like the entire time. So I think we have to question things of that nature. But I do think he's a later round guy that's kind of like high floor, medium ceiling. And so we'll kind of see what happens with that. But it does kind of remind me of Brock Purdy in the way that he was a very low risk pick and then turned out obviously very well.
Talking to Crissy Froyd, Ric Serritella here on the All Access Football NFL DraftCast. We'll be here every Wednesday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. My guy Brian Baldinger will be joining me shotgun from here on out. He had to get through the Super Bowl. Crissy, one thing I respect about you, you're always ahead of the curve. You tell me things, and then the media comes out months later and says the same thing that you already were saying. We were chatting at the Senior Bowl, and you had some interesting names for next year's draft. And I joked earlier in the show that there's always the same, wait till you see next year's quarterback class, because it's always more alluring and more exciting. You had a name that fascinated me. Elaborate on some of those thoughts, and who are some of the other names that we should be keeping an eye on for the 2026 NFL draft?
Yeah, I've started looking at the quarterbacks in the coming year, and I think that one thing that no one really expected is that Carson Beck at one point was the projected #1 overall pick in this draft, and for a long time, it's almost crazy to look back at the Quinn Ewers Carson Beck battle. But I mean, the assumptions that are usually made ahead of the season typically end up very squandered by the end of it. But I look at it, and I've started ranking the quarterbacks of next year, and I would say that Lenoris Sellers of South Carolina is probably going to be the best quarterback in the nation. And then I think Carson Beck will be the second best. And I do think that Carson Beck might have been the best quarterback in the nation this season, but he gets so much criticism, and I feel like people don't look at the fine details. Gunnar Stockton looked so good whenever he took the place of Carson Beck because he was able to run the ball more. And he was way behind where Carson Beck was in terms of the things he did at the line of scrimmage and how good he was from a mental processing ability. It was like by a country mile, but this is why Gunnar Stockton looks so good. Georgia had the worst, statistically, it's been proven, the worst receiving core in the nation. I mean, they had the most drop passes in the nation, which is something that you wouldn't expect from Georgia. And so you have a quarterback that's first and foremost a pocket passer. And if nobody is catching the ball, and another guy who could be so much worse than him is going to have more success, because it doesn't matter how good your throw is. If no one's catching the ball and that's what you're best at, then your offense is not going to succeed. I mean, I make a joke that I think that Arian Smith plays games with oil on his gloves. I didn't want to throw him under the bus, but I was the only reason why he gets a little bit of praise and play. The only reason why he's at the Senior Bowl is because he runs so fast, but he can't catch the ball. It was I used to chart his drops, and it was just astronomical, and it borderline determined the outcome or the closest of a game for Georgia. And I'm not kidding you on that front. But I think that if Carson Beck had a better group of just supporting cast around him, he would have looked as good as he was deemed to be. And Miami has been a very hot team, went from a dark horse team to a team that looks like it'd be a real contender. And I think that Carson Beck is in a much better environment. I don't care what anyone has to say about the money or Hannah Cavinder or whatever is going into that. I think football, from a pure football perspective, he's in a much better situation, and we're going to see that ceiling be hit. And then Lenora Sellers, just to be such a young quarterback, plays like a guy with experience just beyond his years, and they believe in him. And South Carolina is a fun team to watch again, and it's because of Lenora Sellers. I talked to a lot of people around him, and I think that he does a lot of good things from a passing perspective. It's just unbelievable with his legs in a way that looks like a quarterback that's been playing college football for at least 3 years. And he's only going to build upon that, and just his ability to deliver in clutch situations. I mean, I've gone through interviews all the way back with people that played with him in high school, and they said on that one drive against Missouri, when everyone thought that South Carolina was going to lose the game, that they'd witnessed that look in Lenora Sellers' eyes so many times, and he delivered. Like, there's so many impossible situations when you look through his entire career in which he does what you think that no one is able to do. And I think that's why South Carolina has risen. I think with more experience around him and more experience within himself, that team gave everybody trouble this year. Even if they didn't come out with the outcome they wanted, I think that they experienced an astronomical rise just as a team, and that's going to continue into this year. And if they have the right people around him and he stays on the right track, there's no reason to believe that that won't be the best quarterback in the nation.
Lenore Sellers, a name you need to know. And Crissy told me that on Tuesday, so I checked in with some of my sources in Mobile on Wednesday and Thursday, and sure enough, always out in front of it. One more before I let you go, since you brought up the name, and we haven't mentioned them all show, and I feel like I haven't mentioned them yet this year on the live stream, and he's become like the forgotten man. Like, Mel Kiper's been doing this a pretty long time. I listened to his podcast today. He said Quinn Ewers is like 7th or 8th on his big board. Has he fallen that drastically?
Yes.
Wow.
And I told Paul Feinbaum on national TV last year, I said the gap between Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers is astronomical. They shouldn't even be neck and neck. And I mean, toward the end of the season, really from the beginning of the season, I mean, we saw Quinn Ewers just faltering. I don't think that I think a lot of his issues were mental and decision making. I think, like I said, there's only so much grace you can give, but I do think that he was, and based on what Steve Sarkisian said at the Cotton Bowl, it sounded like Quinn Ewers had been playing unhealthy for basically the entire season. So I think that has a lot to do with it. But I've watched Quinn Ewers play in front of my face a few times. I watched him play against Washington, and I came away completely unimpressed every single time. And so I think that he was one of those quarterbacks that was just overblown from the beginning. I don't think that Carson Beck was. I think he happened into an unfortunate situation. I think Georgia only has itself to blame for not surrounding him with the appropriate talent. But I see a huge talent gap between the two, and it was already a relatively weak quarterback class. So no, I don't view Quinn Ewers as a quarterback that is going to be anything more than perhaps maybe a viable backup for the short term.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Quinn Ewers, the problem is he's always hurt. Always.
Yeah. And I mean, I talked to Matt Hasselbeck about this once, and he said, like, just straight up, like, a quarterback's responsibility, part of it is to protect your body, and some of them don't do that correctly, and so it's not their fault, but they have to be held accountable to a certain extent as well.
I have seen it and witnessed it firsthand. She is Crissy Froyd. Tell everybody at home where they can find your work. What do you got coming out? What's next for you?
Yeah, primarily USA Today Sports Media Group and Athlon Sports is where I do the majority of my stuff. It's going to be a lot of NFL draft stuff, a lot of quarterback stuff, a lot of SEC, Georgia, kind of a little bit all over the place, but obviously the main focus is going to be the quarterback feature stories. That these things, they take time to develop, but I mean, did all the interviews at the Senior Bowl, and then usually try to get 2 to 3 more sources outside that, but it's all coming together. I'm really excited about what's coming out.
Yeah, you always do your due diligence. I respect the hustle and grind. You have sources for days, and that's why we pop you up. Hopefully we'll be popping you up here before the 2025 NFL draft. Crissy, thanks for hanging out with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, there she goes. Crissy Froyd, QB Insider, my go-to source when it comes to quarterbacks, and you could just tell that that's all she really does is laser focus on these QBs. So good spot out of her. Interesting stuff with Quinn Ewers. We shall see. Shedeur Sanders is going to be another fascinating case study. I'll tell you what, this was a fascinating show. We gave you a little bonus time. We're almost approaching 5 o'clock. I'm going to have to pay our producer, Cole Glotzer, for his overtime services, but he did a great job holding it down. Of course, we had Eric Edholm last segment. We'll be back here each and every Wednesday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you make note of that. Starting next week, my co-host, Brian Baldinger, will be riding shotgun. And next Wednesday, in fact, 1 week from today, February 12th, we'll be doing our scouting seminar for allaccessfootball.com. Log on to the website, details for that. We have a great sale going on. If you want to get down on the 2025 NFL Draft Bible, we'll have scouting reports on all of the players that participated in the All-Star games, all of the underclassmen, all of the combine invites. And never mind rolling dirty. We're rolling deep in Indianapolis. Our guy Baldy will be out there. We got Howard Balzer is going to bring you the Combine Confidential once again. By far our most popular articles from last year's draft coverage. So we got Balzer back with all the whispers transpiring in Indianapolis. Dom Ambrosi, Jarrett Regal behind the scenes doing the dirty work. Right, doing that dirty work behind the scenes. They'll be on the scene in Indianapolis. We got our girl Kate Adams will be holding it down, doing interviews for us, and of course, we'll be at the Sports Management Worldwide Football Career Conference. I'm hoping to drag our super producer Cole out to Indy as well and get him on the scene. But another great job out of you, Cole. Appreciate all the efforts and work, and we're broadcasting live from the Jersey Shore, as we will be for at least the next foreseeable week or two. And then we'll be joining you in Indianapolis. By the way, we will have daily shows and daily updates. So make sure you follow us at NFL Draft Bible. If you're watching on X, go find us on All Access Football, wherever your social media home may be. And again, one last time with the smww.com Football Career Conference discount promo code if you want to save $150. Baldy 150, Baldy, all caps 150, no spaces. I'll be in the building. Adam Schefter will be holding it down. I'll be moderating the scouting panel. We got some very special guests lined up. You can go to the website and see who all is going to be in attendance. Shout out to Jim Nagy at the Senior Bowl and Eric Galco at the East-West Shrine Bowl for hosting us during the past week. And we'll be back at it again here next week. So thanks for tuning in. Buckle up.